Salutations, gentle viewers. This is George from Ireland. I shall continue my series about History GCSE, the topic being international relations between the wars. In this video, I'm going to talk about the achievements of the League of Nations. It's often remembered as being a disastrous failure, the League of Nations, but that oversimplifies matters. The Second World War came at the end, but in the intervening years, the League of Nations did have some notable successes. The League of Nations set up the International Labour Organization, which still exists. It tried to regulate conditions for workers around the world to improve them, met with only limited success, but particularly in Western countries, not so much in Latin America, Africa, the Far East, and so on. A French socialist called Michel Thomas was in charge of the ILO. The League of Nations said that there should be a maximum number of hours of work, a minimum wage, safety at work, but the countries did not do much on legislation there. It's an issue that people are still struggling with. The League of Nations persuaded member countries to cooperate zealously in the crackdown on slavery and the trade in illegal drugs. Incidentally, until the 1920s, most drugs were legal in most countries, including heroin and cocaine. It seems staggering. In British India, opium was produced and it was sold for recreational purposes. It was sold in the United Kingdom and all countries of the British Empire. It wasn't just in India it was sold. And things like cannabis and LSD were often legal until the 1960s in many jurisdictions. The League of Nations mandates, where various countries in Africa and Asia were given to European countries, particularly France and the United Kingdom, to govern. The mandate would state these countries should stop slavery and arms traffic and indeed liquor traffic, surprisingly, to suppress the alcohol trade. Well, one of the many reasons I suppose the United States didn't want to join the League of Nations is the League of Nations tried to discourage selling guns. And of course, many Americans absolutely love their guns, think that more guns lead to fewer shootings. An example of the League of Nations mediating successfully would be the Åland Islands. These islands lie in between Sweden and Finland, the Gulf of Bothnia. If you look closely at a map of the Gulf of Bothnia, where you see there's a swarm of islets there. So most people in the Åland Islands speak the Swedish tongue and are ethnically Swedish, but the islands belong to Finland. They are closer to Finland. They had been part and parcel of Finland for centuries. Admittedly, until about 1807, Finland had been part of Sweden, and many Finns learnt Swedish as a second language. The United Nations determined that even though most people on these disputed isles were ethnically Swedish, the country that would possess them would still be Finland. There were certain provisos. The Finns would not be permitted to station any soldiers there. The Finns must rule the islands fairly. And indeed, the Åland Islands had a veto on Finnish foreign policy. Bizarrely, this came to the fore in about 2006 to do with the European Union Integration Treaty. So both Finland and Sweden were willing to be reasonable about it. There was no saber rattling. That was that. It was solved, and there was not a drop of blood was spilt, and they have never reopened this dispute. So the Japanese ardently supported the Finns in this one because the Åland Islands are part of their continental shelf, the Finnish continental shelf, as in the sea is shallower between the Åland Islands and mainland Finland than it is between the Åland Islands and Sweden, and this related to a group of islands that Japan wanted to claim, which was in her vicinity. Coming on to another dispute that the League of Nations mediated in semi-successfully. Upper Silesia was claimed by both Poland and Germany. This was a coal-rich region. So should it belong to Poland or Germany? Indeed, there's a Silesian language. Arguably should be independent, though I don't know anyone who agitates for that. Coal was vital for domestic heating, powering trains. There were steam trains back then, ships still using coal, and most have switched to oil by this stage, fueling factories and so forth. The League of Nations organised a plebiscite where the people of Upper Silesia could plump for either Poland or Germany. Plebiscite is a referendum, the difference being in a plebiscite the result is legally binding, whereas referendum is solely advisory. 700,000 people voted to join Germany and 500,000 voted to join Poland. The The Germans said, right, well, we won, fair and square, we get the whole of Upper Silesia. The League of Nations then divided Upper Silesia and gave the area with a larger German majority to Germany and gave the area with a Polish majority to Poland. Now, of course, it's impossible to draw a line which neatly divides people. There would have been a few districts given to Germany with an ethnic Polish majority and a few districts given to Poland with an ethnic German majority. So the Poles, however, were given most of the coal mines. So the Poles were satisfied with this. Even they didn't demand the whole of it at that stage. The Germans were a bit miffed, but it wasn't terrible, considering they'd lost the First World War not long before. But it was no mean feat to get the Germans to accept it with only little grumbling so soon after the First World War. The Dawes Plan, I've mentioned this elsewhere. This was a crisis over reparations, and the Allies had a total rethink on the way they behaved towards Germany. The Chancellor of Germany, Stresemann, had ended passive resistance in the Ruhr. It was impoverishing Germany, not ending the demand for reparations or indeed the foreign occupation of his homeland. So the Germans accepted the Dawes Plan, Dawes' investigation in 1923, but he reported in 1924. The plan was to run for 5 years and then be subject to review. Dawes had rescheduled the German payments over a longer space of time. So there were American loans to Germany. I'm not going to go through the whole thing again. So Dawes achieved something fabulous. It was largely on the strength of this that he was elected Vice President of the United States in 1924. He was a Republican. He later served as the U.S. ambassador to the Court of St. James, as into the United Kingdom. Right, the Locarno Pact, 1925. The United Kingdom, France, Belgium, Italy, and Germany met at Locarno, Switzerland, and the town hall where they had their conference still stands. I've been there, lucky hall. So all these countries were keen to have a détente, as in a relaxation in tensions. They decided they need to discuss the borders between them. The result, there was an agreement which many believed copper-fastened peace for all time. A French journalist there professed herself to be so delighted that the curse of war was lifted forever that she was drunk with joy. So, what were the takeaways from the Locarno Pact? Number the first. France, Belgium, and Germany agreed to respect each other's borders. France had just regained Alsace-Lorraine, whereas Belgium had gained Eupen and Malmedy from Germany. So they weren't going to demand any more land. Likewise, Germany was not going to try and get its territory back. The United Kingdom and Italy promised to guarantee this agreement, and they would go to war against any party who broke it. Number two, the Rhineland would remain demilitarized when handed back to Germany. Remember, the French were having a phased withdrawal from the Rhineland due to be completed in 1934. But after that, Germans would have the Rhineland back. No French soldiers would be there anymore, but the Germans would never, ever station a single soldier in the Rhineland. Number the third, France signed a military pact with Czechoslovakia and Poland, and so France would help defend these nations if they ever came under German attack. So Germany, whilst agreeing her western frontiers said she did not agree with her eastern frontiers, the border with Poland and Czechoslovakia. However, Germany would only ever endeavour to change these borders by peaceful means. Remember, there was a sizable ethnic minority in Poland, German ethnic minority, particularly in Gdansk. It was meant to be a United Nations or a League of Nations city, but effectively controlled by Poland. So the western part of Poland at the time was formerly German. However, there was still a Polish majority even there, but the particular villages or towns with German majority. Czechoslovakia had the Sudetenland, 3 million ethnic Germans in Czechoslovakia. So there were over 20% of the population. So the fact that Germany said that she did not accept her eastern frontiers made the whole thing more credible because they're telling the truth. They could have told a barefaced lie and said, oh, we accept those one too. But that would not have been believable. So, on the strength of this, Germany was admitted to the League of Nations the following year, 1926. And this is attributable to the goodwill generated by Locarno, directly attributable to that. And Gustav Stresemann was no longer Chancellor, he was the Foreign Minister of Germany, and he had pulled off something astonishing, because Germany had been abominated by most countries around the world. There was severe anti-Teutonic prejudice in the early 1920s, and Germany was fully accepted into the international community. More than that, Germany was granted a seat on the Council of the League of Nations. So the big four of the League of Nations became the big five. So remember, it's France, the United Kingdom, Italy, Japan, and Germany. The foregoing four were victorious nations of the First World War. Right, so that's enough about achievements of the League of Nations.